everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Creators. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sherry Pallas. This week's show is with Roger Wolsey, and we are discussing his latest book, Discovering Fire, Spiritual Practices that Transforms Lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm looking forward to all of the comments and questions. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe. If you are on Facebook, grant StreamYard access so we can see your name when you have a comment or question. Please remember to keep all comments and questions related to the show topic and that this is a safe space. I want to give a shout out to our top sponsors, Ruth, Kirsten, Michelle, Ray, and Heidi. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. And if you would consider supporting me, go to sherrypallas.com and go to the support tab, and there's literally dozens of ways. But thank you for welcoming us into your home and joining the conversation. I appreciate you all. And I am thrilled to share that I will be doing a live show at the Wild Goose Festival this July 13th through the 16th. As one of my followers, use the discount code Sherry, and you will get $50 off of the price of an adult weekend ticket. The Wild Goose Festival is a one-of-a-kind gathering that brings together activists, artists, and seekers from all walks of life to explore justice, art, spirituality, and community. It's held at Vanoy Farms in Union Grove, North Carolina, and I would love to see you there. They have engaging workshops, inspiring panels, and interactive experiences. The Goose has something for everyone. So mark your calendars and be part of this incredible community that's committed to making a positive impact in the world. Get more information and your tickets at wildgoosefestival.org. Okay, I would love to see you there. Let's meet our guest tonight. I forgot to do this. There we go. Okay, let's get smarter. So Roger Wolsey is a spiritual director, United Methodist pastor, blogger, The Holy Kiss on Patheos, and is the author of Kissing Fish, Christianity for People Who Don't Like Christianity. I've been a fan of his forever. Roger is the father of a grown son and enjoys yoga, trail running, playing the trumpet, and nature photography. His new book is called Discovering Fire, Spiritual Practices that Transform Lives. Let's welcome Roger.
Well, it's really a delight to be with you. It's an honor. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. So you did note in backstage before we started the show that this show is just like kismet because of your book title, right?
Sure, yeah, but we're talking about discovering fire on Fireside Chats. It's just,
right?
It's meant to be. It
was meant to be. So tell me why you wrote this latest book.
Well, in some respects, there is some reasons which I'll share, but ultimately it's because I couldn't not write the book. I was pregnant with this book. I felt the calling of frankly, the Holy Spirit. I really do feel called by God to have put this out, and I couldn't not write it. That said, what are some conventional reasons that I wrote the book? Well, I felt like I was seeing the church that I love and care about in disarray, not just the United Methodist Church, my own denomination, but the Christian church in general, particularly in the U.S. It's imploding. There's a funhouse, mere distorted versions of it that are kind of become mainstream, and it's just not on good, solid ground right now. And part of that is a dysfunctional, myopic focus on itself and thinking it has the only way that spirit is at work.
Yeah.
It's just not healthy. It's not mature. It's not jiving with how humanity really works. And so I was in Boulder, Colorado doing campus ministry for 14 years. And in those 14 years, if you know about Boulder, there's a whole lot of spiritual practitioners of various stripes and lineages and traditions. And I gradually experienced various things and realized, oh, yeah, indeed, Christianity does not have a monopoly on this, and spirit truly is at work in lots of ways. And I'm aware that a lot of spiritual but not religious oriented folk have sort of allergy and wariness about Christianity. And a lot of organized religious folk have some allergy, wariness around this spiritual but not religious thing. And I feel like I'm an ambassador. I see how spirit is at work in all of these practices and various lineages. I have experienced healing, wholeness in my life because of experiencing and partaking in these, and I need the world to know. So that's the hope, is to help each side lose some allergy, increase appreciation of how spirit is at work in all of this. And I'm not saying that people who are spiritual but not religious have to do centering prayer or lectio divina or walk labyrinths or do fasting or some of those conventional Christian things from the mystic contemplative line. And I'm not saying that Christians need to be engaging in ecstatic dance or yoga or psilocybin or ayahuasca or dream work or any of these things that are quite common, increasingly so in the spiritual but not religious world. But I'm not saying they shouldn't be doing these things either. But if they are going to do them, I share my experience. I do some deep research, share best practices. So if anyone tries these, they're going to come in with eyes wide open and really know a lot more and feel safer as they might try some of these things.
Yeah, the church is definitely constructed. I mean, I hear so much on social media that it's just the US, but I also see its vines going everywhere. It's more, I think it's more pharisaical than Christ-like. And it's a lot more of people saying, only I know the right way. And if someone were to act that way in my personal life, I wouldn't want to be around them. And that lack of service makes those ego-driven proclamations to come out and say, this is the way. I mean, I am constantly, like yourself, trying to bring people back together and say, let's just talk, let's look at this, stop being so dogmatic, because technically Jesus was killed for saying the same things you are. And opening up to other practices also brings in, I think, a more full picture. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I take salvation seriously. And when I say that word, it might be a trigger word for some people. And if you have only heard that expressed by evangelicals and fundamentalists, okay, I also don't care for that perspective about believing X, Y, and Z now, so you go to heaven and avoid hell after you. That's not at all what I mean when I talk about salvation. I mean a more Hebraic, Jewish understanding of wholeness, well-being, liberation, and it's really a focus on the here and now, at least as much, if not more, than whatever happens after we die. And that wholeness, that well-being, can't be just in one way. It'd be like having the French horns being the only instrument in the orchestra.
Exactly.
Well, that's nice. The French horns are amazing. Yay. But we need the string bass and the timpani, and we need
the drums.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You got to have that rhythm going. Yeah, I mean, when you look at something through only a single lens, it divides, it conquers. You have all of the things that we're seeing the result of in the church now. I mean, looking at the laws, looking at that supposedly Jesus condemned, looking at, being only one way. I as because I'm a woman probably, but I use the analogy of shampoo. Literally, no, not all of us can't use the same shampoo. You specifically, you don't even probably use shampoo.
For me.
Yeah. So I mean, to say, well, this one is the only one you could use, everybody would look at you like you're crazy. Like, no, I'm different. My hair is different. My ethnicity is different. But when it comes to God, we expect just such a narrow pathway.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the Barna Institute did a pretty profound study a few years back, which I referenced in my first book, Kissing Fish. And it asked young people, a lot of them across the US, the top 5 words that they associate when they hear the word Christian. And it was anti-women, anti-gay, anti-science, exclusivistic, and judgmental. So if those are the top 5 things that young people are associating with that word, well, why would they want any part of it? And so
Yeah.
clearly the vehicle of a vehicle of God's grace and love in the world through this story of Jesus and the understanding of Jesus, it has somehow become a broken vessel. It's not doing what it's hoping to do. More folks are fleeing it than being drawn to it. So it either is going to double down in what it thinks are the best practices, the right way to be Christian, in a smaller and smaller holy huddle club, or it needs to broaden and more humbly acknowledge, oh, how is spirit working over here? Oh, here's how it's working over here. Let's compare notes. That
Yeah.
more humble, collaborative sharing approach, I think, is really my sense of what's going to actually be effective. Yeah.
Well, and for me, I learned, you and I talked backstage about my degree being in comparative religion. I mean, I found that whatever makes you, and I've stopped using better because it's just such a vague word, but whatever makes you more loving, that is the path that you should take. There's not, some people want the views, some people want the shortcut. Again, it's whatever makes you a more loving person to your neighbor is what you should do. And you mentioned ayahuasca. Ayahuasca changed my life. It healed so many things in me, and it renewed my faith. And so many people would say, "Oh my God, that's demonic, or you're letting your things in," out of fear. And I don't think that there should be any fear associated with God.
Amen. Yeah, amen. Yeah. And now what's interesting is some people will pull up scriptures that say the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom and this sort of thing. But that's a very English and limited English translation of a Hebraic concept of awe and reverence and wow. And that's so different than what when we hear the word fear. So it's more, yeah, wow, awe is
Wow.
an important experience, and ayahuasca gives you a lot of wow.
A lot of wow.
It isn't, as you know, many people can have a full, beautiful spiritual life and do good and receive good and never do psilocybin, ayahuasca, any of those kinds of plant medicines. Uh, and likewise, many people can have a beautiful spiritual life and never participate in communion or church oriented things. But these are vehicles, these are vessels of God's grace and love, and there is communion, there is the presence of the divine shows up. And there are lots of ways. It doesn't have to be any one of these things, but it's nice to not be afraid of various things and not assume the worst. And so hopefully this book helps people realize, oh, I don't have to assume the worst. Here's this Christian pastor who's experienced this. He's sharing how it's been part of his own healing. Oh, well, that doesn't mean I necessarily feel like I want to do it, but okay, maybe I don't have to like be against it or something. Yeah.
Well, and when you say the fear of wisdom or the fear of God is the impetus of wisdom, I would say that to my child. You better listen to me. And I'm a mere human. So whenever, something goes to that effect, I always go, okay, as me, as a higher self of a human, how would I handle this? And it wouldn't be, you better listen to me. That is more drawn, that is more ego driven as opposed to let go, be in awe. Um, Take that breath in and feel the life within you as opposed to going, oh my God, I'm going to hell.
Right. Right. And I don't even believe in hell. I don't
I
think
don't
it's a
either.
Jewish or a Christian concept. It's rather unfortunate that Germanic Nordic term was imposed, and it's not been a healthy thing. Uh,
No.
Neither Sheol or Hades are places of judgment or eternal torment. It's those are the words that are in the Greek, but ah, it's we've jumped. And I attribute it to Constantine and the folks soon
Oh,
after.
huge.
I talk about that more in the first book, but there's progressive Christianity really, I think, trying to reclaim the faith to the more diverse Christianities before it became so codified and dogmatic in the fourth century. Yeah.
Well, I always find it ironic that Jesus said, watch out for those Pharisees. And most of the teachings that our current Christian church holds are from Paul, a Pharisee. So, And that's where it went more legalistic. That's where it started isolating people. That's where women were supposed to be quiet. When Jesus spoke with the women, and the men got pissed off because he said things to them that they didn't even know. So when it took the Christ message of love and inclusivity to this is our clique and our club, and only special people can get in, which is actually a derivative from Judaism, but again, it made it exclusive as opposed to inclusive.
Yeah.
So what else did you discover in writing this book?
Well, one thing to say, I took after 14 years in one particular ministry of being in campus ministry at CU Boulder, I did a 9-month sabbatical. It would have been maybe a year, but I was running out of money, so I made it a little quicker. But I chose to go to Iowa City, which is very different than Boulder, but also kind of similar. It's a college town, very progressive. And I moved there in June or July of 2019, in part because of the Iowa City Writers Workshop, which is really good, fertile, collaborative people who help each other be the best writers they can be. Also because the weather is pretty crappy. And if it's going to be crappy, that's favorable conditions for me staying inside and actually writing.
Totally.
Yeah. So that helped. But a few things happened. I only got the introduction, chapter 1 and part of chapter 2 done in those 9 months. But other things happened. My mom came down, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And that was in the end of September or early October. And I'd only been there since July. And I found myself zipping up the road to St. Paul, where my mother was living, frequently zipping up the road, installing hand railings around the house, taking her to appointments, helping out in various ways. And so,
what a good son.
In some respects, the cosmic reason I was there wasn't to finish writing the book that year, but to be available to my family and help out.
Yeah.
And I needed more time in the oven, or my tea bag, more time steeping in the tea. I could not have finished this book that year. More growth needed to happen, more practice, more development. The death of my mom happened in 2021. Prior to that, I learned some, did a lot of video interviews of mom, and I learned some things, including about one part of her family in Virginia that owned fellow human beings, that had slaves.
Oh, wow.
Tobacco farms and what have you in Virginia. And I didn't ask that question until I was, 53, and maybe 52, whatever it was. And I learned about that. Okay, that was a heavy thing to take in. And then the following year, I learned some heavy stuff from my father, which he gratefully allowed me to share in the book. He's an educator at heart. Stuff that a lot of men wouldn't share. But I asked him about estrangement in his family, what was going on, and why weren't certain people talking to each other. And I learned a few things. I learned about some trauma in his childhood. I learned how
it was so shocking in the book how you dropped that. I was like, you were relaying the story of how he just dropped it on you.
Yeah.
Like it was like, oh yeah, I went to a party. And it
well,
was
I was sort of bullet pointing certain traumatic events in my childhood. And so I share that my experiences with these spiritual practices are part of my healing journey. But if I don't share what I'm healing from,
exactly,
who's going to really take it seriously? And so I'm rather overt and vulnerable and share some of these things, including my dad having been raped when he was 13. And then learning, maybe I don't want to give it away, but people will learn something interesting about the name of the boy who raped him, who was a few years older. And a lot of things became clear, like, oh, well, that explains that. That explains this. This explains that. And so, and that last thing didn't get shared until March of last year, March of 20.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, and then I couldn't do much writing. When I moved to Grand Junction, I took 2 positions. I was a part-time pastor of a church in Fruita near Grand Junction. and then also on the conference staff of the Mountain Sky Conference of the United Methodist Church. And those two jobs were so demanding, I just couldn't find time to write. So I got permission from both employers to take the month of July off this past year, and I wrote most of the book in that month of July. And I ended up going to a retreat center in Costa Rica, beginning of the raining season. It rained most every day. Okay, I get to stay inside and write. That worked out. So it wasn't some kind of luxurious vacation. It was writing with pounding rain on the tin roof and just crushing it and getting it out. But I could not have written this book until those other experiences in their own time played out, and maybe he was more ready to share, I was more ready to receive. And so the book could not have been written in 2019. It could have started, which it did, but I needed more healing, more time, more experience. So that shows up. So in a way, time itself plays a major role in the book. And I talk about serendipity and time awareness in the book. And then Costa Rica itself, the retreat center itself, became, in a way, a character in the book, especially when I'm talking about nature, being in nature as a spiritual practice. If I had not been there, I wouldn't have had the same lush sharing as shows up in this book. Yeah.
Have you read The Alchemist?
I flipped through it, but I haven't read it as yet. But I don't know if I might own it, but I can't say I've read it, but I flipped through it a bit. Yeah.
I just finished it last week, and one of the closing statements literally punched me in the gut, and it was about timing. And so he's talking to the universe, and he says, yes, I achieved my goal, but did I really need to go through all of that pain? And the universe says, but if you didn't do that, you wouldn't have seen the pyramids. Weren't they cool? And that just shook me, because again, like with my book, it was the same way. I bought a boat because I was sick of spending every weekend on the book, and I wanted to get out. And the next day I broke my foot in half. So it's like, and I was in a cast for 10 months. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll sit on the couch and do this book. So yeah, same type of thing of the universe works, and that's all about The Alchemist, how the universe works in your favor to fulfill your purposes. And I just love that.
That lines up beautifully. Yeah, good association.
You should totally read it.
Okay.
So what happened in between starting to write and finishing to write? Did you have any new epiphanies other than the knowledge that you said that was brought out because of it? Did you land in a different spot when you were done?
So the first part, did some things happen? Yes. I had a few more experiences with psilocybin. And now it's not like I've had that many. Maybe it's 8 or 9 at this point, and 4 with ayahuasca. And that was before I started writing the book. But since I started writing the book, there might have been, 3 or 4 psilocybin journeys. And 3 of those were very informative experiences, which I do describe in the book. So those were profoundly helpful. Also, some relationship clarity about certain would-be unrequited love type things. There were certain things that played out that needed to be played out the way this is where this is going, and here we go. So some closure has happened that was so needed. And I guess I will say that I'm still a work in progress. I'm 10 years from now, I hope that I'm even further along by far than I am now. But right at this point in time, I can say that I have myself more. I trust myself more. I'm less of an anxious presence, more able to just flow. Less worked up about what other people think. Yeah.
I no longer fear. It's more of I was constantly like this as a Christian, like, oh God, he's gonna punish me again. And now, I mean, my whole energy has switched up. It's just, I think I am closer to what most people refer to as God now than I've ever been.
Mm,
And that was from dropping a lot of the dogma.
beautiful. Yes.
It's scary, but it needs to be done.
There's a poem in here. I don't know if I should read it now or not, but there's a poem that makes me think of what you just said, that you're feeling more God than you've felt before. And to some extent, that's kind of in some quarters, a dangerous thing to say,
Yeah.
uh, but it's also true.
Yeah.
It's just true. Uh,
I
um,
don't think I've gone more than 2 or 3 days without being called a Jezebel or a blasphemer or something to that effect, just because I'm saying, no, you should really just love.
right. I'm looking for a poem that it's okay, here we go. I wrote this in February of 2019, and that would have been the spring before I moved to Iowa City. But there was some progress that's already had happened at this point. So the title is The Isthmus of Isthmus, and an isthmus, it's not a word people use very frequently, but it's a thin strip of land between two larger bodies with ocean on either side that's likely to become an island someday. It's just that thin. It's a liminal thin place. The Isthmus of Isthmus. No longer can I fake it. No longer can I pretend. No longer can I fool myself and others that when I say God, I mean what they think I'm supposed to mean.
Oh, wow.
No
Yeah.
longer can I talk about a God 6 steps removed, as if God were the A-team of attorneys, advertisers, and agents who write the contracts, book the guests, and place the products on Megatainment Tonight, where tinsel-toothed theological celebrities talk about the forced formulas and the predictably vapid romantic plot twists on doctrinal scripted soap operas, televised services for sheeple to vicariously experience romance through the days of other people's lives. No longer can I have truck with meta. No longer can I talk about those who talk about talking about God. The God I know can't be contractually codified, can't be corralled, can't be contained, can't be colored within the lines. For her, lines are but loose liminal laughter, an impish, invisible isthmus. The God I know and love is as close to me as my very breath, is the one who breathes my breath back and forth as lovers do. She's my lover who gazes into me as she breathes in my far out freaky fantasies and fears, breathes out her peace, sweetly saying, chill the F out, and smiles. The God I know gently appears to me within moments of closing my eyes in the kaleidoscope of colors that shift and shape, an organic, living, ever-changing, northern-lighted nebulaic star womb, constantly birthing and ever repurposing degrading X-rays, dissolving stardust and particle decay, at once like witnessing fractal fluorescent photosynthesis taking place through a microscope, and then morphing to mesmerizing, meandering Mayan meandros, zagging double helixed key patterns in photophosphorescent webbing, and then to a fleet of yellow subatomic marines becoming playful purple porpoises, cruising various depths of churning rainbow mirroring ocean waves as viewed from a cosmic telescope located on a moon in a distant galaxy, while Perky Perseids sprightly shower across its glitter-gilded misty muslin lens. But far more than my deep revering awe for this amazing artful goddess is the strangely warmed feeling of sweetly loving presence and intimately caring closeness that she has for me and for you. She's there, right there, for us all, loving, always. He's the one who is. There isness itself, and so are you. I bow before thee.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. I mean, it encapsulates everything. Just say, God is not small. God is not in this box. It's not even in the entirety of what the sages and the prophets and all of them say. It's the enormity of love. I love that. That gave me goosebumps.
Well, what you said made me think of that. And so the last chapters, well, first of all, chapter 6, praying with plants. That's where I talk about things like marijuana and ayahuasca and psilocybin, and I show how they have been used by many people in many therapeutic, transformative ways,
Oh,
dealing
yeah,
with anxiety, stress, the PTSD, depression, all kinds of things with lots of documentation.
totally.
And I think for many people, that's going to be the chapter they're buying the book for, is to see if Preston's going to say.
Drugs.
But chapter 7 is the last chapter, and for me, it's the highlight of the book. It's powerful prose and poetry, reading and writing poetry as a spiritual practice. And I provide some of the poems I've written sort of chronologically, and people may possibly see certain maturation development in this poet, this person, as the poems go on, possibly. And I give people tools. If maybe you don't think of yourself as a poet, well, here's some tools to help you start trying it out, see what you think. And then there's, of course, a conclusion that ties it all together. But there's quite a bit of poetry in here, and I hope it speaks to people. It seems like you like that one. So
I loved it. And I haven't gotten that far in the book yet. So, yes, I can't wait to read all of those even more. So, your audience is who? Are you looking for the nuns? Are you looking for people who are still dabbling? Who do you think your audience is for this book?
well, so I'll just read a little on the back side, a little synopsis on the back of the book. Is it Christianity meets Burning Man, Richard Rohr meets Russell Brand, or communion wafers meet psychedelic spirituality? So that gives it sort of a little, so it gives you a feel. So who would be drawn to those associations? On the one hand, spiritual but not religious people, they know all about Russell Brand, they know about Burning Man, they know about psychedelics. And then on the other hand, Christianity, they know about Richard Rohr, they know about communion wafers, they have that down. And what I'm trying to do is be an ambassador to bridge the worlds and help both sides open up and have curiosity. Now, I'm thinking, if I had to guess, I think a lot of people buying this book will be older American Christians who have kids or grandkids who are doing tarot cards or astrology or oracle cards or static dance, psilocybin. They're wondering what the heck they're doing this for, what's going on, help me understand this. So some of the folks buying this book will be concerned, maybe, or hopefully slightly curious grandparents or parents, or some Christians who are maybe Christian plus. They love Jesus, they go to church, and they do yoga, and they go to ecstatic dance, and they do sing kirtan chants, and they occasionally do psilocybin. And can I be okay? Is it okay for me to do this? And so folks wanting to feel if it's okay might be drawn to this. And a lot of spiritual but not religious folks who maybe like Jesus, they want to like Christians, and they're at a point where they're kind of done being so allergic and like, okay, well, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something here. What could this be? And so folks with that kind of curiosity, or maybe they are maybe they're shamans and they like, what does this Christian pastor have to say about what I do as a shaman? And so who knows? But so that's a lot of various possible audiences. Yeah.
Well, I'm a big proponent for ayahuasca. I would not be who I am today without it. It gave me the strength. Let me preface it with it's traumatic. it's, it's not a party, right? It is. I mean, it's not. Well, I was told before I did it that it was like 10 years of therapy in 4 hours. And that's what I wanted. It was like, let's knock this shit out immediately. Let's do this. And never even comprehended that those 10 years of therapy in 4 hours was also the emotions involved in that.
Yeah.
But I know that no therapist ever would have found what ayahuasca found in me and needed to tell me. I know that, I mean, even 10 years of therapy, they would not have put those pieces together for me. So yeah, I believe it's totally divine. I mean, I over 18, and yeah, it's not for everybody. All doesn't exist in this world, but I firmly believe if everybody did it, we would have world peace.
Wow. Well, you're a bit. I hear where you're coming from, and part of me is like my tail's wagging, and I do. I'm trying in the book. I try to not come across quite so saying everybody has to do this because I don't want to be on the flip side of like everybody has to know Jesus or
Exactly,
So
exactly.
spirit really does work in so many ways. This is a powerful one. It is effective for many people. Psilocybin is another option. Holotropic breath work, it can be quite powerful for people too, where there's not even a substance involved. Um, there's so many possible ways. And yeah, I do hope at least that we can normalize. So, two states in the US so far have legalized psilocybin. Ayahuasca is happening all over the place, and it's officially legally done through Native American tribes and
Yeah,
lineages. If it's happening in the U.S., a lot of folks fly out of the country to do it. Um, my hope is basically to normalize that. Hey, this is part of what's available in the healing realm, and you don't need to be afraid of it. And it's okay if your state puts it on the ballot. Go ahead and vote yes. This is you can read the book and find out why. But I also don't want to overdo it either. But now I'm not going to stop you. You can be the biggest cheerleader you want. And I wouldn't. I certainly have been changed because of ayahuasca. Yes, I've had 4 journeys of ayahuasca. I don't feel a need for more. Maybe
yeah.
in 2 years I might. Um, uh, yeah, so everybody's different, and some people maybe it's just one experience with one of these plant medicines. That's all they'll ever do. Okay, that there's
Yeah, it's been like 5 years since the last time, 5 or 6 years maybe, and I don't have any need to do it either. But I was called before. I mean,
yeah,
I was called. I like to look at it as something in the big buffet of choices to reach new levels if you want to. I mean, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who just did one and has been, well, 2 years ago did one and is still trying to deal with the repercussions and everything that he was for. So again, it's traumatic. It's not a walk in the park. It is not a party,
yeah, and
but it should be on your buffet of
yeah,
things, of practices that to make you heal,
and I
because
try
that's
to
what it
do a
is.
good
It's
job
healing.
of. I try to do a good job of helping people have a good experience with it because, as you know, if you don't follow the very specific diet, avoiding oils and fats and salts for several days in advance, you're not going to have much of an experience. It's you're going to have wasted your money,
Yeah,
and if you are on anti-anxiety medicines or antidepressants,
yeah,
or certain other medicines, number one, talk to your doctor. It may not be for you,
most definitely.
but get off of those for at least 6 weeks,
Yeah,
some, if not more, so that you have a clean slate. And some people, it's going to be hard to be off of that for
yeah,
those 6 to 10 weeks. And so you have to be very mindful and thoughtful about this. And the other thing that I really, and I talk about it in the book, is integration. So you've got this friend who had this powerful experience, and years later he's still processing. And so the places, the shamans, the ceremonies that are offering this, the ones that I speak most highly of are the ones that have follow up. They
yes.
check in with you the next day, the next week, the week after that. There's maybe several weeks in a row of helping you integrate and really bring it home. So it wasn't just some peak experience like a thrill ride, but something that you really can integrate. And so that's super important. Yeah.
Well, much like you would commit to an exercise program or a
Yeah. Yeah.
doctor's regimen, there has to be a commitment there and to want to heal. Like you said, it's having wonderful effects with PTSD, and then trauma based issues. But if you can't get off of your MAOI inhibitors, then it's not something for you.
Exactly.
It's just not. I mean, it would, like you said, it would be worthless. So, yeah. But some people might need that, and others would just go, oh my God, that's way too much. I don't believe that all applies to anything, but it definitely is another, like I said, in the buffet of life, that might be able to help you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you talk to God, or or any of those things?
Yes. So, and I share about some of the journeys almost in kind of a verbatim kind of way because I just have a really good memory. Um, well, not for everything, but some things, including these journeys. And I remember with ayahuasca, the first journey was really experiencing my divinity. My holy moly, what a glorious child of God I am, and the distance between me and God is what you don't even talk about it. We just are, and then the next day I had another journey, and I was just curled up like a gargoyle, just my stone twisted gnarly demons parts of myself. Like, oh wow, I've got that too.
Yeah.
Whoa. And I'm glad that I was doing that in a container with others, and I was able to work with shaman to kind of do what needed to be done to clear things out and to be okay. And um, yeah, so those are some things I can speak with as ayahuasca. Psilocybin, I would say a couple of those experiences, I definitely felt God. I felt God, and one of them there was even encounter with Jesus. Um, now, well, I'm not going to give it away. People can look to read this. And now, does this mean that this is exactly Jesus showing up in Roger's life, and therefore this is actually God's written truth? Well,
It
take
is for you.
it is for me, right? And so I hope the reader will maintain whatever critical thinking. My hope is they assume the best and have a charitable disposition. But I'm not asking anybody to think what I think or believe what I believe. But I'm hoping to evoke curiosity, and
Yeah.
that's I'll say that.
Now, just to clarify for the audience, psilocybin is also mushrooms.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's so magic mushroom. People call
did
that.
you
Yeah.
do the maximum dose? Like, I've seen the studies going out that you need to do a certain amount in order to get that deep spiritual experience.
So I have done one what they call a hero's journey. I
Okay,
did
yeah.
do one of those. I passed out 3 times during that journey.
Oh wow.
Very, very humbling and powerful. Um, I've also done microdosing a few times, and I've also done just sort of moderate doses. And those moderate doses really can be effective. Um, but one hero's journey, and that was profound. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't start there. I don't, and maybe you don't need to do that either. Um, I'm glad I did it once. I don't feel called to do that big of
Yeah.
a dose again. Um, and at this point in my life, maybe once a year max is what I have in mind for how I will engage with that plant medicine. It's not a regular part of my journey in life, but it's not absent either. So um, I'll probably do one journey a year going forward, maybe timing it in the late fall as as it gets darker, seasonal affective disorder might set in for people. A dose of that can really push depression away and get you through the winter. So I'll volunteer that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I view plant medicine is a way to shed a part of our humanity that prevents us or shields us from the mystical.
Hmm.
And when it's, in my opinion, it's primarily the ego. So when you do these types of things, the plant medicines for purposes of healing and for closeness, unity, beautiful reasons, not corrupt as, checking out of the world and getting wasted and stuff like that. They can really help expand your consciousness to say, okay, yeah, I can see beyond this when I know in normal situations I can't. That's what makes it so wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw the DNA thread in full motion. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and I never would have even perceived that otherwise.
You might have caught some reference to that in that poem that I read. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why it got me. It was like, oh look, he's saying my thing.
There's certain things that tend to show up for people. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you hope is the biggest takeaway that people get from this book?
My hope is that more people will be more open to actually healing
Mm.
instead of sort of just doing a little bit to get through the day and be good enough for the day and the next day and the next day, but to actually be open to, all right, well, what would happen if I actually went deeper to the root? What would that be like? Am I open to that? Can I see myself going to the root? And here's various practices to help people do that work. So my hope is that actually more people go to actual transformative healing rather than just sort of medicating uh, superficially to get through the day. Um,
From surviving to thriving.
yes, that's the biggest hope, and maybe the religious traditions and lineages and spiritual uh, lineages themselves and the religious ones can all play in the sandbox better together. We can, all right, this is what you have, and this is what you have, and oh, what do you have? Comparing notes, how spirit is at work, and not having hubris and ego around any way being the way. There's these beautiful ways, and let's take turns playing together, and that would be another hope.
That's a beautiful vision. We can only hope.
Yeah.
Can't we all just play in the sandbox together again?
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, it's, drop the egos. Let's all commune. I mean, people go into church to commune and literally take communion and then leave and say, oh my God, look at that asshole over there. So, anything that makes us be more whole as humans, I'm all for. I am completely all for.
Yes.
Don't be afraid. The work is hard. The work is really, really, really hard. In fact, this friend who was just telling me about his trip was saying that at one point he was like, yeah, no, halfway through, he's like, yeah, I'm not ready for this. And you don't really get that opportunity. It's let's do this and let's heal. And like I said, I wouldn't be the person I am without it. It touched so many different things. And I think that anything that takes you to that place to see why you are the way you are is awesome. I mean, think about how many times people use those quizzes on Facebook just to find out who they are and what, have some insights or something like that, even though all of their data is being stolen from it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some weird ironies in this whole thing. Yeah, there are tools out there that are helping us that could be biting us in the butt down the line. Who knows? But um, there is definitely while interest in Christianity might be on the decline, maybe there's no decline in spiritual concern or a sense of being a spiritual self and people wanting to grow spiritually. So that there is good news, and there's what a time to be alive with
Yeah.
so potentially so much openness to so many possible things. Yes, I wish things were different now. Yes, I've got a 22-year-old who I wish the world were going to be a little easier for, but at the same time, what an opportunity. There's so much available and so much growth, that potential that can be happening. I'm more on the positive side of it than the negative. Yeah.
Well, and just a side note, I actually talk about this in my book, and I name the doctor, which his name escapes me now, but this doctor is convinced that Moses in the burning bush, Moses in the burning,
Yeah.
Abraham in the burning bush,
Yeah.
was an ayahuasca trip.
Well,
Yeah. And he associates that all of the prophets of the day, whether it be from Soma or ayahuasca, that's how they reached God.
Yeah. I do reference something in the book. There's some recent research. Archaeologists have found some earthen pots and things that are infused with psychedelic plants. So like, and these were obviously in Hebraic rituals, Jewish traditions, quite a ways back. So there's some evidence to actually back up the speculation. Like,
There's a ton.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Zoroastrianism came from a Soma trip, which predated Judaism and has Judaism and Christianity all entwined into Zoroastrianism. Yeah, it all came from a psychedelic trip. Okay, so let's show everybody the book.
Yep, so here it is. It's the choir publisher did a marvelous job with the artist capturing graphically what I was trying to convey with words, and I'm really pleased with the cover.
Yeah, that is a fantastic cover. It's available now. It's on Amazon.
Yep.
So everybody go get it. Go buy this one. It's this week's book, and then we can definitely talk about it later. Let's okay. So we're almost at the top of the hour.
Yep.
What further wisdom do you have to share? Don't you love how I put you on the spot like that?
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a little piece from the conclusion of the book, where I quote Reverend Mr. Fred Rogers. So Mr. Rogers was an ordained Presbyterian pastor, and his show was his sort of ministry to the world. He said these words at some point in his life. All right, well, I'll just read this. The same is true for teaching people about rock and roll, sexual education, astrology, tarot cards, the Enneagram, ecstatic dance, psychedelic plant medicine, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, shamanism, Lectio Divina, centering prayer, fasting. The late Reverend Mr. Fred Rogers said, quote, anything that's human is mentionable, and anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. So my hope is that certain things that are maybe taboo, risque topics, things to talk about, we don't talk about that. Well, we can, and we need to be talking about these things. And if we can talk about them, and here's a Christian pastor helping people talk about them, we can not have to assume the worst. We can see where someone's coming from. And Mr. Rogers still is where we need to be going. So
definitely. I mean, Mr. Rogers, Dolly Parton, those are all of the good souls, right? Okay, so if people want to find you, they can go to your website.
Yep, sure.
Social media, you're all over that.
Yep. There's
I'm always sharing stuff from Kissing Fish. So if you follow me on any of my social medias, you've probably seen me share this stuff across the way.
Absolutely.
But go to Amazon to get his book. And it's been a quiet audience tonight. I'm kind of surprised. You must have stumped them. You know what it is? They're on their Amazon account ordering all your books right now.
Could be.
Roger, it has been so much fun. Thank you so much for this conversation. Follow him, find him on social media, go buy the book. I can't wait to hear all of your thoughts on this. And thank you for having another tough topic conversation with me. That's why I have this show, is to discuss these tough topics and teach people and let them not be so afraid. So thank you so much. I'm going to send you backstage and close the show.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of this show. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned so much, and now have additional tools in your tool belt to become the best version and a completely whole you. There's not just one path for anybody. All doesn't exist in this world, and there are a lot of really good tips and tricks to try and get you to that next level of the spirituality journey that you're on. Next week's show, I'm still booking, but I'm trying to have a show on drag shows because that's another tough topic that needs to be discussed. But I'm booking it, so don't hold me to it. But hopefully next week is a show on drag shows, and then we've got a bunch of really brilliant authors coming in after that. Ooh, I see some comments. Let me address those. Love this discussion. Thank you so much. Getting the book. Thank you so much. So, as always, I will see you next week. And no matter what you do, remember, walk in love. See you soon. Mwah. Bye.